Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Business of Meaning podcast. And today I have the great pleasure of speaking with another entrepreneur from our industry, Mark Mallchok from Brella. He's been, we were not going to say exactly the number of years, but he knows the industry very well. We're going to have this conversation about entrepreneurship. We're going to talk about engagement, about optimizing event production, because that's also what he's doing. He has got tremendous experience in our industry. Ladies and gentlemen, Mark, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today.
Hey, Eric, thank you so much. I'm glad to be here. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Absolutely. And we were discussing just before we start recording, we both talkers. So I was telling you about a previous experience when I was asking question and the person would say, yes. And then I would wait and nothing will come out. But I know this is not going to be the case. But I have to tell you, before asking you how you come to the industry, I have to ask you, on your LinkedIn profile, it says that you studied in Hawaii?
Yeah, we'll start at the very beginning. So yes, I was very, very lucky. My parents were these like traveling gypsy type people. My dad was in the military growing up. He was all over Europe. He came back, became a librarian, because that's what you think of when you think of globetrotting, librarian. Met my mom, also a librarian. They went off and they did like trips into like Africa. And I have these great pictures of them spending like a ton of time wandering around there. They'd come back and they were on their way to Australia on a boat. And my mom got a little bit ill. They stopped in Hawaii. And there you go. So, they found jobs, they moved there. So they raised my sister and I there. We were very lucky. We actually went to, they became librarians for a private school on the big island of Hawaii. So that's how I got into the industry. Is I actually was growing up on it. My mom was into technical theater. There was a professional theater there. She was like hanging lights, building sets, doing the audio side of things while also being a librarian. My dad was for the upper school. He was in charge of like the AV club and all this stuff. So I grew up on the stage, backstage, holding cameras. I taught photography while I was still there. Like I did anything I possibly could that involved some sort of a event or gathering or, technology. I loved it. And so I was hooked from the very beginning.
Wow. Talk about training.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a blast. I like every football game I shot. Like if I'm not playing on the field, I was shooting it. If I was in yearbook taking pictures. So it helped me to go, wow, I know what I want to do. I want to be an actor. I want to be in events. I want to do film. So I went to Northwestern University, just north of Chicago in Evanston. And I very quickly realized that theater is hard. Being an actor is difficult. It is a challenge, right? There is a lot of really talented people out there. And I made a very conscious decision early on that I like to eat and pay rent. So I was no longer going to be an actor. I became a director instead. I studied film. I got into corporate video, and that's how we started.
So you had no idea when you were studying that it was such an industry, or you knew already about the industry?
I knew it was a hard industry, right? And there was still a passion there, and I loved doing it. But I met a lot of people who were, and I was self-conscious of this, like that were much better than I. I was there during the time of Looking Glass Theater. David Schwimmer was a couple of years old. Like, there was everybody that is now a well-known, respected, older actor, right? It probably was competition at that point. So yeah, wow. I was very quickly realizing that I much preferred telling people what to do and controlling the story in the narrative versus just performing the story in the narrative, right?
I understand that. And also the fact that I had my own agency for over 20 years and work in over 50 countries. Every time I was partnering with a production company, because we're always telling a story. Yeah. And that's the best way to convey a message, also to create experience, to really have a script of what's going to happen, like on a movie set, to surprise people, right?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I love storytelling as a way to engage your audience because it does two things. One, obviously, it connects the audience because we come from an oral tradition, like growing up through all of those generations that came before us. We had to tell stories in order to pass along history and all those things. So it's baked into our DNA. and they connect with us as individuals. We love to connect with somebody else through a shared narrative. The other thing is that for presenters, stories are amazing because they're a way to trigger memories instead of trying to just do rote memorization of a script, which I had a hard time memorizing 2-hour long plays. But if I could put them into stories and to come up with a story, I could immediately remember all of those things because it became very easy because there were these little touch points that were connecting in my brain. And I was able to remember all of that data. So we did a ton of training stuff over the last, and I'll spill it, 34 years, right, in business, right? And we have done a ton of training, and retention is the holy grail, right? And I heard this thing once where the best way to remember something and to avoid the Ebbinghaus forgetting curve, which is people forget half of what you tell them in the first hour, and then 80% over the next month, is you tell them a story. And the story will connect to the dots better for them. So I'll give you a quick one if you want. So I'm going to have you remember a couple of things for me. I want you to remember the following words for me: zebra, sunglasses, bandana, cart, sandwich, canoe. All right. Now, and if I talked at you for another
zebra,
20 minutes.
Bandana, glasses, cart, and I didn't picture
something else, right? So
I was trying to picture a zebra wearing glasses.
See, that is exactly it. So I'm going to tell you the story, right? So I was in Europe recently, and I was walking down the street, and I saw the most amazing thing, Eric. You're never going to believe this, right? It was a zebra, but it wasn't just any normal zebra. This thing was pimped out. It had sunglasses, it had a bandana, and it was hooked up to this cart. And I don't know where it was going with this cart, but it was really weird because the cart had a canoe in the back of it. And in the canoe, it was just jam-packed full of sandwiches. There were sandwiches everywhere in this cart. So I'm wondering, where is this zebra going? This incredible party on this island where they need a canoe to haul the sandwiches over, and he's hauling the carts. So it must be this incredible thing. So if I go back to you in I don't know, a month, and I'm like, hey, Eric, what were those words again with that zebra thing? Yeah. Probably you, and I apologize to everybody listening to this now, for the rest of your life, you will never be able to forget that you have a zebra with sunglasses, a bandana, a cart, a canoe, and sandwiches.
And a sandwich.
Right?
Brilliant. Brilliant. Yeah. So when did you tell yourself the story of I'm going to be my own boss? I'm going to have my own business.
Yeah. Well, my partner and I were young and naive. We came out of college. We had worked on some projects together. She and I, were very complimentary. We were very much Renaissance people. We love to do absolutely everything. To give you some ideas, I was in theater, minor in film. She was in film. She was an editor, shooter. We both were computer programmers. We were animators. I was a photography teacher as well. We loved doing a lot of different things. And we realized that we had a choice coming out of college. We could either go to film and go to LA and become on a movie that we would be on for 5 years. And it would be the same thing over and over again. We could go to New York and get into TV, and we would be on a show for the rest of our lives. And that didn't seem very exciting. Or we could go into corporate industrial video and events, right? Which sounds so glamorous, but we decided that fit our desire to do something new every day because every project was new. Every project was different. Every day there's something new. Even now, I have projects that I'm working on: finance, pharma. There's ones in, Europe. I'm working on stuff in Asia. It is so different. So we very quickly knew that we wanted to, in addition to be able to pay rent and eat and have food, is that we wanted to do something different every single day. So we discovered this amazing niche, which was corporate events and corporate video, and just absolutely fell in love with it and have been doing it for 34 years. It's varied. We constantly are evolving and changing every day. So not only do the projects change, but we as an organization and our industry has changed dramatically. So we knew that immediately coming right out after the first project.
Interesting. You said something that was triggering something in me because I was also doing everything at the beginning.
Yeah.
When you start a business, that's what you do. Now, when you want to grow a business, that's definitely not
what
what
you
you
want to
need to
do.
do.
Yeah.
When did you had that? I want to call it an epiphany, but when did you realize that, listen, I cannot do everything, the two of us, we cannot do everything all our lives.
Absolutely.
We need to structure, we need to have process, we need to hire people. How did that happen?
It was very quick. Like we knew right away that in order to do the things that we loved doing, which was at that time the production side of things, we needed to find people to help with the bookkeeping, right? You know, the administrative side of things, the IT side of things, even back then, right? Some of the technical side of things. So we very quickly knew that we needed to bring people on. And within the first couple of years, we were already planning and mapping it out. It's interesting because as we grew, we needed to add in more of these administrative support positions to keep the company running and performing smoothly, right? Everything from sales side of things to the admin to the bookkeeping, et cetera, right? So we very quickly knew that we needed to add these specialists in to continue doing what we did really well and loved doing. That continues actually even today. We have these conversations practically on a daily basis where we're looking at what is it that we want to be doing and what do we need to delegate off to somebody else or offload off to somebody else so we can continue to do the things that we do particularly well, that are our special sauce, if you will, right? Our special things that we do particularly well. And that is a hard realization for most entrepreneurs and most owners, is to give up control of some of those things.
That's the most challenging thing I experience with the people I'm helping, is to change their mindset.
Yeah.
Yes, but nobody's going to do it exactly. No,
as
that's
good.
right.
Sure.
Guess what? If the client is happy, that's the most important thing. And if they do it at least 80% the way you're doing, it's great because it's saving you time to your point, do what you like and what you are best at.
Well, and at a certain point, if you don't give somebody the opportunity to learn and fail and then correct and improve, they're never going to get beyond that base level, right? You know, it's interesting. Our industry is very old school, like, you know, going back to the theater roots, right? I see us much more as blacksmiths. And go with me here for a second. In the old days, right, to become an expert blacksmith, to be able to forge an incredible sword, for example, you had to start with horseshoes. And, you know, you started as somebody like shoveling coal, and then you suddenly got up to the anvil and you were able to make a horseshoe. And then you kind of moved up into the journeyman, you became craftsmen. We are at our core in what we do, both artists and craftsmen. And in order to do what we do really well, we need the practice. We need the time. We need the muscle memory and the rote work through of all of these things. And if we don't give people the opportunity to try something, to get that muscle memory, to practice it, and to fail every now and then, they're never going to learn and they're never going to be great. And then you're stuck as the owner doing absolutely everything because you don't trust anyone else to do it. And that's no way to live. So absolutely get out of your comfort zone, embrace failure by somebody else. They'll have to do it. You know, they have to get the practice, and then you'll be able to do what you love.
Is there one specific example of something that you did where you learned and didn't go the way you wanted, but you learned about it and were able to share that experience afterwards?
There are so many of those. I'm trying to think of just one.
Join the club.
Yeah. I mean, it's every day. There's not one specific thing, but like we treat failure as such a horrible thing. And again, in my line of work, risk mitigation is the holy grail. It's a thing that we always try to find a way around because we know that something's going to go sideways and something's going to go wrong. It's how we react to it and how we've prepared for it that is what sets us apart. So if we will do training sessions with our team where we'll have them switch out positions, do something they're not comfortable with, and we'll run these mock shows all the time because we want to create those instances where something goes wrong, because learning how to deal with it is the important thing. How quickly you embrace it, how quickly you can mindset, you can come up with solutions. I love problem solving. Like when we hire people, we hire them for two main things: personality and how quickly they have common sense about solving problems, right? Because that's the key to what it is that makes a successful event for a lot of our clients.
Absolutely. You know, it's so interesting to me that we are sometimes afraid to make that decision. But if someone doesn't react like that, is not a solution
Yeah.
driven person, they're probably not. There should be something. They should be doing something else.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
So when you have this company that is growing, and then you're looking at different industries, um, no one that I know is going from starting something to straight success. There's always like a roller coaster.
Always.
And when you have that, and you and I and everybody that's an entrepreneur have experienced that. What I wonder is, how do you react in terms of your mindset? Keep the eyes on the long-term vision
Yeah.
while you are in the middle of the trenches.
And you took the words right about it's the trenches, right? So like this roller coaster is peaks and valleys. Our industry is always peaks and valleys. And being around for as long as we have, we've seen a lot of change and evolution. Technology is a constant driver. Things are constantly changing. And if you can't embrace both the peaks and the valleys, you're doomed to fail. And in the valleys are the moments where you can look up and look out and go, all right, now is my opportunity to change because I have nothing to lose, right? And we had one of those coming out of COVID. During the COVID times, we were very lucky going into COVID because we had started to get into virtual meetings. We had developed some amazing relationships. We had become known as experts for bolting on virtual meetings to in-person meetings. And then COVID hits, and suddenly we're 100% virtual. We tripled our staff. We were almost 100 people. We were doing a massive number of virtual meetings. And when we were at our peaks during that time, it was amazing, right? We were very lucky because we were able to hire on a lot of live event people that were doing in-person meetings before COVID, theater people, and all of their work just shut down. They were in a valley, and we were able to lift them up to a peak and train them in some new stuff and give them some new things. When we came out of that, this pendulum switch, like everyone was like live in person before COVID hits. It's now all virtual. It comes back. No, virtual is dead to me. It is all about in person. And the reality is there's something in the middle. But we took that low point there where we didn't have a lot of work anymore because everything went back to in person. A lot of the agencies started to pull stuff back in. A lot of the AV companies started to pull stuff back in because, again, they hadn't worked for a couple of years. And it made perfect sense. And we took that as an opportunity to look around and go, what do we do really well? What are the things that we are particularly good at and that we have our uniqueness? And that was around something that nobody kind of really talks about, which is strategic event optimization, right? And you mentioned in the intro what that is, looking at ways to make events much more efficient, more economical, and more engaging, right? And the efficient part is we love to work with competitors, right? With other companies to put together this ensemble theater to put on an event. And what we do is we break down all of those silos and we facilitate communication. So it's much more efficient, right? There's not a lot of dead ends. We're coming back. There's not a lot of waste, right? So it's more efficient. And when there's not a lot of waste, it's more economical. You save money where you don't have OT and overtime and bad decisions because you didn't have enough time for planning, right? And you're not suddenly rushing things in at the last minute. So it's a much more affordable program to start there and be part of the planning process. And invariably, a well-run show is an engaging show, right? You now have time for doing things like interactivity and audience engagement. You have a much more breathable agenda, so you have time for people to network. So it's one of those things that happened for us is when we were at that valley and we looked out, it was an opportunity to go, you know what? What is it we really like doing? What is it that we do really well? And what is it that's unique that we do that nobody else does? So it was an opportunity to kind of look around.
I like that. The question that comes to mind listening to you when it comes to strategic events optimization, what are the KPIs?
Yeah.
How are you measuring it? And more importantly, I guess, for your business, how do you help your client understand the value of what you're doing and justifying internally the investment that they're making?
Perfect question, because that is exactly the challenge the event industry faces is ROI, ROE of all flavors of the E, right? Of that. It's very interesting because we love to spend that time and energy to figure out the goals at the beginning. Nobody does this. This is the thing that blows my mind. Like we get into a meeting with a client and we're like, they come to us and we're like, we've either worked together before on different programs or it's a reoccurring project, whatever it is. And the first thing I ask them is, so what are the goals for your meeting? What are the goals for your event? And most people cannot answer that simple question. And that just boggles my mind, because how can you plan for what you want to achieve? How do you know if you have a KPI? How do you know if you've achieved success if you don't know what you're trying to aim for? So that first question is, you have to ask, what are your goals for the business? What are the goals for the audience? What are you trying to take away from this? How do you want your audience to change? How are they evolving during the program? Then you can start to put your KPIs in place and do the tracking. And recently I had this conversation. It's not about how good the food was on your surveys. It's not about, how comfy the beds are. We have to completely change our surveys and our trackings to get into the depth of like, did it financially improve your well-being? Did it make your job easier? What did you learn? Who did you connect with? How did you? Those are the KPIs that we need to be identifying, and nobody thinks that way. It's very hard. So short version to your question that I got to in a really long way is we track not just attendance and not just, participation, but we also look at things from each of those 3 E's. So the effectiveness of the communication. How much time and energy do we, spend on a particular project? How many hours? Were there efficiencies that were achieved, right? By connecting between the content agency, the creative agency, the AV partners, ourselves, the clients. So we're tracking those. We are tracking from the economic side of things, every cost savings. We have a massive spreadsheet that we go through, and every time we save something, whether it's flights or whether it's, F&B in partnership with planners, or whether it is reduced hours, we're tracking all of that. So we come back to procurement after every single project, and we can document, here's what we saved by coming in either under budget or by not exceeding the budget because we didn't have OT because we planned this in advance. We were able to save this money because we didn't have to ship something in the last minute because we already planned for having that there. So we do that. And then obviously the engagement side is talking to the audience and figuring out, how did they feel about this entire experience? What did they take away? And really getting granular into how it impacted their lives.
Amazing. And I like your approach of asking questions at the beginning. I have an anecdote that I was bidding for an incentive trip for Lidl, and they were doing it with P&G, Coca-Cola, and Kellogg's.
Yeah.
And I arrived there. I was one of the 5 agencies that they had called to present. And the brief was to prepare an incentive trip to, I don't know, the destination that they mentioned. I came there, I had 3 slides. And the first slide was a summary of their brief, which was very short. It was precise on the destination. That was it. And then I remember the guy from Coca-Cola said, Eric, we didn't bring you in just to tell us about our briefing. I said, I know, Carl, but I just want to set the context, because if you want to really have something that is going to help you with your objective, I need answers to those questions. And the next 2 slides were questions. And that was it. I was not presenting on a destination. I said, I will do, and I will do a great program, but I need the answers to those questions. And that's how we won the bid. And so asking those questions, to your point, I'm always amazed how quickly people in our industry go immediately to the tactical aspect, to the logistical aspect, instead of making sure that we understand the objective. Now, back to you, and I think that will be very interesting for those listening. How do you train your team to talk like that? Because it's not only when you take the briefing, it's when the client is interacting with your team. How do you train them for that?
Yeah, again, it comes back to experience and doing, right? The more that I model and they do, the better off it is. But it's also just through that constant repetition of what is important for this particular event and how do we get there? And that training comes from just them doing it over and over again. It's that muscle memory, right? So unless you let them ask those questions, unless you force them to speak, I have this analogy that we use is that when we are working in a meeting room, our goal is to be the captain of the ship. Our goal is to drive the bus. Our goal is to lead from inside that room as producers, executive producers, whatever our role is. And the only way that you know where you're going to navigate to and how you're going to get there is to ask your passengers. And your passengers are not just the audience, but it's the business leaders that are there as well, right? So you have to service them. You have to ask them the questions. And if you don't ask them the questions, you're just driving randomly around in circles, right? So I always try to get them to start sitting in early in the meetings. The earlier we are brought in, the easier it is to ask those questions. It's very hard to ask those questions on site. So what we do is we bring our team in early on in the process. We're there from day one, side by side with the clients for a year planning this out. And we bring in our project managers, we bring in our producers as part of that ensemble collaborative team, and they can hear things from the very beginning. But also the goal is that I push them to ask the questions. I want to embrace that uncomfortable silence. As you can tell, it's very hard for me because I cannot stop talking. But I try very hard to let them ask the questions. And that's the practice. That's the training. That's how we do it. And then it results in these incredible experiences.
You were talking earlier on about your experience and what you've seen in the industry. What are the changes that you've seen in the last years that people should be aware of that makes you approach the way you run business in a completely different way?
So we switched over from focusing on production to focusing on engagement and connection because, and that sort of consultative strategy side of things, because we did see a big shift. There was this big push coming out of the pandemic and virtual into in-persons, and it was all about human to human connection and community. And that's probably the biggest shift right now of everything is that content is very important. Content is king, right? But communication, connection is queen, right? It is the thing that makes content work. And one of the things that I really see is that we are starting to have to find ways to be better about connecting with our audience and giving our audience time to connect with each other, human to human connections in rooms together. And rooms don't have to be physical rooms. Like I'm a big proponent of virtual meetings, and I think there's a big benefit to virtual meetings if done right about communicating between people across the world and to connect them. But going back to the human to human, one of the things I think we do very poorly in the event industry and we need to fix is that we try to cram too much content into too little time. And we don't give enough time for people to connect. And we don't give enough time for people to absorb and to refresh. So what we have happen is we have people show up nonstop from 8 to 5 o'clock, jam-packed content, speaker after speaker after speaker, going right to their 1 hour. And then when we get into our breaks, we're optimistic and we start at 30 minutes, but then, that content is not going to fit. So let's make them a 20-minute break. Oh, the presenter went long. Let's make it a 5-minute bio break, right? So people never have a chance to breathe. They never have a chance to talk and they never have a chance to connect. So one of my big pushes is find more time for connection, make breaks a required 30 minutes, make lunches a required 90 minutes, right? So that there's time for people to connect with each other, not just in formal, structured networking, but in hallway conversations, getting to know each other, because those connections are going to do as much as the content they learn in furthering their careers and making them better at the jobs they do.
Great point. And I totally agree with you in talking about community and human to human. Why do you see in your company, but also in the industry, when it comes to the need or not, or I have a precise idea of that, so I don't want to guide the question, but the need or not, or increase or not in face-to-face meeting because of AI?
Yeah, AI is an interesting thing, and we're living in the world of AI now, but go back 10, 15 years, right? And, you could have said the same thing about the World Wide Web and AOL and the internet, or maybe a little longer than that, right? But there will always be something out there that we are living in. And now is particularly prime time for this conversation. With AI, it is going to push us back to some of our core humanity, because in its ultimate role, It is supposed to save us time. It is supposed to make things more efficient. It is supposed to give us our time back. And in our ultimate goal, that time back is for human connection. It is for community. It is for family. It is for getting out in the world. Right now, we're so early in the process that we're all so hyper-focused on AI that it's not living up to its eventual potential, right? And I see that happening because there's this huge pushback against AI of now we don't trust what we see, hear, etc. So the only way to truly trust if something is real is to do something that is in person and is in real time, because any recording can be faked. I could be completely AI generated. Everything I say could be AI generated, right? But the fact that we're having this conversation in real time, or I'm meeting somebody in real time, all of that goes away, and you know that you're back to a human connection again. And that is going to become even more valued day after day after day, not just as AI takes over our lives, but technology in general. We all have screens and phones and connections, and we're going from virtual meeting to virtual meeting, and we've always connected. Finding those breaks and opportunities to disconnect from all of that and focus just on the person that's in front of us is going to be more and more valued.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. We didn't prepare that before, but I totally agree with what you just said. And I that's the same when I use the technology. So yes, I'm helping business owners, and I'm not there at 11 p.m. when they have suddenly a question, and that's why I have Eric AI.
Well, of course.
And it's amazing what technology can do, but it's in person, and the need to come in person, that's never going to go away, and that's a good thing. Yeah. Mark, my two last questions for today, because yes, you and I could speak.
We'll do this for hours.
First of all, how do people get in touch with you?
Yeah, I'm very open about this. So there are three main ways. Obviously, LinkedIn, look me up. I'm on there. You can find me. I will happily connect with you, and I have messages back and forth on things. You can go to our website, which is Brella.com. Luckily, we've had Brella for 30 some odd years. So, with Brella.com, it's got, all sorts of ways to connect with me and pass logs and messages and so forth. But I will give this out freely. Mark@Brella.com. As you can tell, I love talking to people. I love having conversations. Reach out to me with any questions you have or challenges you're facing. We were talking about this earlier. I love to give back like you, right? I love to have conversations. I love mentoring people and answering questions. It's what I was trained to do. I am a problem solver. I am a solution architect. I love to have things pop up and surprise me, and I am having to figure out how I find a solution to those. So bring me your challenges, bring me your questions, bring me your, issues. Wonderful. I love to talk about all of that stuff. So reach out.
Great. And my last question, when we meet in a year from now with a bottle of champagne, what are we going to celebrate?
I think it's going to be celebrating another amazing year of doing what we love to do. Every year that goes by, it is celebrating someplace new that I've been able to go visit, somebody new that I've been able to meet, a new relationship, a new hobby I've picked up, something that is new and different. So it is about celebrating life. It's about celebrating the new things we've experienced over the last year and looking forward to the new things that we get to do in the year following.
If only you were passionate, that would be easier, right?
Yeah, I know, right? It's such a hard thing.
I love it. Absolutely love it. Mark Mallchok from Brella, thank you so much. And I look forward to meeting you in person in the future.
I can't wait, Eric. Thanks so much for having me on.
Thank you for tuning in to the Business of Meeting podcast. I hope you found today's episode valuable. If you enjoyed the show, the most important thing you can do is leave a review and share it with your colleagues. It really helps spread the word. I truly appreciate your support. And if you're ready to take your business to the next level, don't forget to visit eventbusinessformula.com to learn more about how we are helping even business owners like you. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you next time.